The first thing I smelled when I stepped onto what used to be my dock was hydraulic fluid and pulverized fiberglass, sharp, acrid, like someone had bombed a boat show. The crane was still swinging, dropping the last section of Laura's laugh into a dumpster the size of a boxcar. White dust hung in the air, so thick the sunrise looked sick. Diane Whitaker sat 30 yards away in her white Lexus, window cracked just enough for her latte, watching the destruction the way some people watch fireworks. I stood there in the clothes I'd driven 12 straight hours in, boots still carrying red Georgia clay from the job site, and felt something inside me go very still. Not rage yet. Rage would come later. This was the cold, flat calm I used to get on the carrier when the reactor scrammed, and every alarm in the plant went off at once. You shut up, you assess, and you start fixing the problem. Ellen Ramsey came running down the finger pier in a faded bathrobe and slippers shaped like flamingos. 71 years old, retired principal, voice that could still freeze a third-grade riot. James, they showed up at 6:30 with papers. Said it was an emergency abatement order. We tried to stop them. Harold stood in front of the crane with his oxygen tank, but they just called the sheriff and had him moved. Harold Brooks limped up behind her, Vietnam Coast Guard, lungs shot from Agent Orange, dragging the green bottle like it weighed 100 pounds. I'm sorry, Chief. I couldn't do a damn thing. I put a hand on his shoulder. You stood your ground. That's enough. Diane finally stepped out of the Lexus, heels clicking across my teak like she was walking a runway. Cream blazer, pearls, clipboard thick enough to stop a .45. She offered the kind of smile real estate people give when they're about to tell you your house is perfect except for the dead body in the basement. Mr. Callahan, I'm terribly sorry it came to this, but your vessel had become a public safety hazard. Multiple complaints about sanitation, unauthorized modifications, and frankly, the aesthetics were bringing down property values for the entire bayshore. I looked past her at the shredded remains of the only home Laura and I ever truly loved. The cockpit where she used to read aloud while I navigated by the stars. The V-berth where we made plans that cancer stole. The galley where she taught me you can make decent coffee on a boat with nothing but a kettle and stubborn hope. Property values. I repeated, tasting the words. Tell me, Diane, how much is a widow's peace worth these days? She didn't answer. Just tapped her pen against the clipboard and walked away. That was the moment I decided to let her hang herself with every foot of rope she wanted. I'm James Callahan, 61. Grew up in South Georgia, enlisted the day after high school, spent 24 years keeping nuclear reactors from turning aircraft carriers into floating Chernobyls. When Laura got sick, we sold everything and bought Harbor's Edge Marina in 2009 with the proceeds of a life insurance policy and every dime of my retirement. 92 slips, 2 acres of waterfront, a little office that smelled like coffee and old charts. We planned to fix boats, drink coffee on the dock, and grow old watching dolphins chase mullet at dawn. Cancer doesn't negotiate. Laura was gone in 9 months. The marina became mine alone, and the boat became the place I could still hear her laugh in the wind chimes. Diane Whitaker blew in 5 years later with a moving truck and ambitions bigger than her penthouse. Within 6 weeks, she was HOA president. Within 6 months, she decided the marina was her personal expansion project. She filed papers claiming adjacent emergency jurisdiction, convinced the county clerk, who golfs with her husband, to misfile our ownership docs, and started writing citations like parking tickets. I paid them all. Every $30 fine for a tomato plant, every $100 penalty for a hammock chair, every $200 notice for wind chimes that exceeded acceptable decibel levels after 9 p.m. I paid in cash, got receipts, and slid everything into Laura's old recipe box. She would have laughed at the irony. The woman who organized spices by region was now cataloging injustice alphabetically. Diane's master plan was elegant in its greed. Drive out the 8 liveaboards, declare the marina abandoned, sell it to Ocean View Partners for $3 million, pocket $200,000 as finder's fee, and turn our home into a private yacht club for people who think salt air comes in a candle. She never counted on a Navy chief who once spent 41 straight hours in a flooding engine room, keeping a carrier afloat. I started sleeping on Ellen's settee the first week. Diane threatened anyone who harbored unauthorized persons with daily fines. Ellen just poured more coffee and told Diane to take her clipboard and perform an anatomically impossible act. By week 2, I moved to the Clearwater Motel 6 so the fines wouldn't bankrupt my friends. $49 a night adds up, but federal cases are built one receipt at a time. I hired Rebecca Sullivan, a maritime attorney who scares insurance companies for fun. I called Megan Doyle at the Tampa Bay Observer, who had been chasing HOA corruption since a board in Sarasota tried to ban American flags. And I woke up Frank Russo, retired St. Pete PD detective, who still owed me for the time I kept his son's destroyer from running aground in the Persian Gulf. Frank mounted cameras on his Grand Banks trawler across the basin. Harold, who once plotted courses through minefields, went line by line through HOA financials and found $141,000 paid to Bayshore Marina Management LLC, a company registered to Diane's home address. Ellen kept the other liveaboards organized with cinnamon rolls and righteous fury. Diane escalated the way bullies do when they sense weakness. She changed every gate code, installed cameras pointed at our boats like we were zoo animals, brought buyers through twice a week, heels stabbing my docks, promising them the residential nuisance would be gone by closing. Frank's cameras caught her taking envelopes behind the fuel dock at 2:14 a.m. Caught her coaching the county zoning inspector on how to word the variance. Caught her telling Ocean View Partners the ownership issue was a minor paperwork delay that would be permanently resolved. Every click of those heels was another felony. 3 months after they murdered my boat, Diane scheduled the vote to sell the Marina at the quarterly HOA meeting. She thought the room would be full of grateful condo owners ready to cash in. She didn't know it would be full of federal agents in golf shirts. The community center smelled like burnt coffee in anticipation. Television trucks lined the curb. Diane took the podium in cream linen and pearls, smiling like she was about to be crowned queen of something that mattered. She projected slides, new pools, new gates, new tennis courts, all paid for by the Marina she was stealing. The crowd murmured approval. I waited until she opened the floor for final comments. I walked down the aisle carrying Laura's recipe box. The room went so quiet you could hear the air conditioning strain. "Diane," I said, voice steady the way it was the night we lost propulsion in a typhoon. "Before you sell my Marina, maybe you should meet the owner." I put the 2009 warranty deed on the overhead. My name, Laura's name, every slip, every piling, every grain of sand outlined in red surveyor lines. Then Harold projected the embezzlement spreadsheets. $141,000 funneled to Diane's shell company. Megan Doyle stood. "Postal Inspector Ramirez, would you mind standing, please?" A woman in the third row rose, badge flashing under the fluorescence. Frank played the video. Diane at 2:14 a.m. Envelope changing hands. Clear audio of her saying, "Once the liveaboards are gone, title clears itself." Diane tried to gavel the meeting adjourned. Nobody moved. Inspector Ramirez walked forward, cuffs out. "Diane Whitaker, you are under arrest for mail fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy to commit theft of real property in excess of $2 million, and a whole lot of other charges will go over downtown." The applause started before the steel touched her wrists. It went on so long the deputy had to bang for order. Diane took a plea to avoid trial. 5 years federal time, full restitution, lifetime ban from any board or fiduciary position. The developer canceled their Florida division rather than explain to shareholders why they almost bought stolen property. The county officials she bribed are still waiting for trial dates. 6 months later, I launched Laura's Laugh 2, a Beneteau 46 with the same wind chimes welded to the radar arch, so they'll never break again. We christened her with champagne and a handful of ashes from the old chimes mixed with salt water from the slip where the first boat died. We used the settlement money to start the Harbor's Edge Trust. Ellen is president now, elected unanimously. Harold runs the books with military precision. Frank's cameras watch for manatees instead of neighbors. Every Saturday, we teach kids from the projects how to sail. Their laughter carries across the same water Diane once thought she could own. The docks creak the way they did when Laura was alive. The coffee tastes like it used to. And nobody will ever destroy another home on my watch. I kept one piece of the old boat, a 6-inch section of teak rail Laura used to lean on when the sun came up. It's mounted over the companionway now with a brass plate that reads. She let them show who they were. Then we showed them who we are. Now I want to hear from you. No filters, no polite answers. When someone with a title and a smile decides they can take everything you have left of the person you loved most, when they grind your memories into confetti because it blocks their view, where exactly do you draw the line? Is there ever a moment where patience ends and righteous, overwhelming force begins? Or do you believe we are obligated to keep turning the other cheek while they burn the first one to ash? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. This is happening in marinas, neighborhoods, and small towns across America right now. Let's talk about where the line actually is, because good people are running out of cheeks.